Hi there, I'm Dana. Welcome to this week's video blog. Today our question comes from Lindsey, and she is wondering, she's been working on the program with her 1-month-old, and she has a routine in place, and she's been putting him in the crib, awake, a little bit drowsy, but mostly awake, she says, and lots of nights he's going a 4 or 5 hour stretch, but then every night or two he'll only do an hour and a half. And she's wondering, how can she encourage him to sleep 4 or 5 hours every night instead of just occasionally? Well, first of all, good for you for getting this started early. I always say it is much better to prevent problems from happening than trying to fix problems later. So starting with a newborn, even from day 1, is really great because you can just gently push a child in the right direction and they can develop their own sleep skills and start sleeping beautifully all on their own, as long as you know what you're doing. So good for you. Now, I love that you've got a bedtime routine in place and that you've been putting him in the crib awake-ish. I would encourage you to work a little bit harder in the next month, making sure he's a little bit more awake when you put him down. I find that if a baby is drowsy, and drowsy means all kinds of things. I mean, there's different levels of drowsiness. And so the goal should always be to get to a place where you can put your baby in the crib wide awake and he can get himself to sleep from start to finish all on his own. So that's your goal. So as the weeks go on here, put him down a little bit more awake and more so until you get to a point where you really feel like he wasn't drowsy at all and he's figuring this out. That's really going to help with the nighttime length. You'll find that working on that will make those stretches longer and longer. Okay, so that would be step 1. Step 2 would be to hold your baby to their personal best. If he's proven to you that he can go 4 or 5 hours without a feed, then don't jump the gun. Really give your baby a chance. If he wakes up at the hour and a half mark, give it 5 or 10 minutes and see what happens. You might be surprised that if you just wait him out a bit, he'll get himself back to sleep without a feed at all. I think for a lot of us, the minute we hear newborns awake, we rush in there to assist, when really if we just gave them a little bit of time, they might be able to get themselves back to sleep without it. And he's proven that he can do this, so I don't think there's any worry on your end, that he really needs a feed already. An hour and a half is pretty quick. So those would be my 2 tips around encouraging this longer stretch. Now, just a little piece of advice about the night. Typically what happens is that first stretch gets longer and longer and longer. That's the consolidation of nighttime sleep happening. And so you'll find that the 4 or 5 hours stretch to 6 or 7 hours and so on. And then the stretches that follow tend to be fairly short. And that can throw people off a little bit, but it's really normal and very common. And so really that first stretch of sleep is what you should be looking for, developing and getting longer and longer. All right? Thanks so much for your question. Sleep well.